it sucks to cover this because Bernie Sanders is doing great work in the Senate on this, and he's been pushing other Democrats. I think the previous record in terms of Democrats that had signed on to block offensive weapons to Israel was 17. And then yesterday, there was a vote that did fail, but Sanders was able to get 23 Democrats in total to vote on blocking both a shipment of bombs and
that's supposed to say rifles
to Israel. And really, really unfortunate vote by Jon Ossoff, who we were just praising for his previous votes to block money to Israel. But he's making a terrible calculation because he's up for re-election. He should say, I welcome AIPAC money into my race, to be honest with you, given how the results have been. But just a terrible vote, unfortunate vote. But in terms of the 17 Democrats that voted to block both bombs and rifles to Israel, and Ossoff again only voted to block the rifles, which is the least consequential part.
So you can have bombs.
So you can have these horrible bombs. But
that's so funny. Like, why split the baby on that? Go one way or the other. Like,
for the
you're
settlers,
not gonna get any credit.
Yeah, I think it's the settlers versus the defensive for, against scary Iran or whatever. So Michael Bennet, these are the good Democrats that have joined on here, or the Democrats who at least are coming around. Michael Bennet, Richard Blumenthal, Cory Booker.
These are the ones who voted against blocking anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Jesus. I was like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Okay. These are the horrible Democrats.
You get rifles and bombs.
Yes. Michael Bennet, Blumenthal, Booker, Cantwell, Coons, aka Joe Biden's ghost in a
closest friend
in a new younger body. Cortez Masto. God, that Nevada, like the duo, just so disappointing. John Fetterman, naturally. Gillibrand, naturally. Maggie Hassan, naturally. Hickenlooper, Padilla in California. Gary Peters of Michigan, who is retiring, right? So, if I'm not mistaken, Gary Peters is retiring.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yes, he is.
Because there's that race. Yeah.
So he has no reason to do this except to be an anti-Palestinian racist. Padilla, Peters, Rosen, Adam Schiff, also of California, Chuck Schumer. So both New York and California Democrats.
The liberal
maniacs.
bastion in New York and California. Yeah, anyone who thinks it's maybe the new blood, but not these guys in office. That's for sure. Not the establishment in those countries, in those states. Excuse me.
Right, and then Mark Warner and Ron Wyden. That's insanely disappointing for Ron Wyden.
Disgraceful.
Who is
Wyden's usually pretty bad on this stuff. He's good on like the domestic civil rights stuff, and then
So there you have it. If any of those senators, including above it, the Ossoff, Reid, and Whitehouse, who did the only blocking of the rifles one, if those are your senators, I would encourage you to call your senators. But Bernie kind of getting votes to block arms to Israel, he's been doing this for almost 2 years. He deserves a lot of credit and is, of course, one of our greatest living champions for the working class. I do not want this to be like a Bernie pile-on thing, but I do think that it's time that we kind of criticize this answer and his continued refusal to say the word genocide. It's a major problem, and it is...
on these issues, Bernie is actually the opposite of like, oh, you should practice what you preach. He actually practices better than he preaches on these issues.
His record as a lawmaker and the type of stuff he represents, which I think should go further, but it is at least one of the least Zionist in the Senate. When he talks, whether it's this or whether it was shortly after October 7th, when AIPAC thanked him for saying, I don't know how you can reach a ceasefire with Hamas, a group that had previously honored ceasefires. He's bad rhetorically. It's bad when he speaks on this stuff. It's frankly harmful in a way that needs to change.
And he's asked about this by Caitlin Collins, and words do matter, especially when there are open cases in the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court against these people who are committing genocide. Bernie Sanders could add his public testimony really to the pile of folks that are accusing Netanyahu, the Israeli government, and Israel of genocide. This is part of public claims that are put together in these legal documents that we read about that add to the evidence against these horrible monsters and the Nazis of the 21st century. And he's refusing to do that. And this is his answer to Caitlin Collins when asked about it on CNN yesterday.
The point yet where you would call what's happening in Gaza a genocide?
You can use
the point yet where you would call what's happening in Gaza a genocide?
You can use whatever word you want.
But Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying that she's the first Republican to go there.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Look, genocide is a legal term. What is going on now clearly is absolutely horrific. 60,000 people dead and 140,000 who have been wounded. But the important point is not what you call it. It is horror. And I think the whole world knows that. The answer is, what the hell do we do about it? Should the United States taxpayer, should your taxpayer dollars go to support a government that is doing it? That is the most important issue. So immediately, you got to get ceasefire, you got to get humanitarian aid in, but the United States cannot continue to aid and abet the Netanyahu government doing what it's doing.
Do you want to see United at the point?
So this is really, it's inaccurate to say that it doesn't matter, basically, if he says genocide. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, no, I mean, so I agree with what he's saying half sense. Genocide is not just a crime. You can refer to something as a genocide without talking about the legal definition of it. But it's important that it's a crime, too, because people are currently being tried for it right now. There are currently warrants out for people to arrest for war crimes and all sorts of things. And so we're having this conversation about it being a crime because part of what we're going to hopefully do about it is have consequences, just like there were consequences after the Holocaust, just like there were consequences after previous genocides or apartheid state. We had the Truth and Reconciliation Committee in South Africa. Like, there are going to be consequences. It's not enough to just maybe the U.S. government in Israel and the U.K. can stop doing this genocide and we can just call it even or whatever. Like, there need to be consequences for this. And I think Bernie is trying to run interference for that here. Like he does a lot for the Democrats, and for people who are, not just aiding and abetting a genocide, but actively doing it. The United States government is actively not just providing weapons, not just, giving aid, supporting militarily, providing intelligence, blocking, going into the sky and blocking bombs on behalf of Israel that due to after reprisals from Iran. Like, the U.S. isn't just like aiding the genocide. That's like a rhetorical trick people who have been supporting it for the past few months want to believe. Like, the U.S. is doing this genocide. The U.S. is actively doing it because Israel could not do it without the U.S.'s support. And I think even if you believe that Israel is its own separate country in the way that matters for this case, which I would say really does not.
Well, I'm trying to remember if a United States senator has said it definitively, and Bernie's been outflanked by Elizabeth Warren on this, who had said in April of last year that she believes that Israel's war in Gaza will legally be considered a genocide. And that's the closest that we've gotten to a United States senator using that term, which has significant implications. Marjorie Taylor Greene outflanking Democrats on this, many of them, is a significant problem because, as we talk about with the right wing in this country, they are much less tethered to the truth in this current moment and regularly. So they'll use the language of the left to build political capital for their own movement.
Remember when they were against pedophiles?
Yeah, they do, and it can go to insidious ends, like when they talk about the Great Replacement theory being white genocide, where they appropriate this incredibly important language for racist or nativist ends. Marjorie Taylor Greene called it a genocide in a tweet where she gratuitously pointed out that Randy Fine, who she was attacking, rightfully within the context of their debate over the genocide in Gaza, where she gratuitously called him Jewish in the tweet. And 90% of the tweet was accurate, but you see that point. And it's because she is coming from a place of anti-Semitism and coming from a place of Christian nationalism, and not one that is multicultural or multi-ethnic or accepting of all different faiths. And so the Democrats, if they don't get ahead of this, and Bernie as a leader of the progressive movement, there are people that are asking him to represent not just the progressive consensus on this, but the consensus within the Democratic Party at this point. Like, a majority of Democrats believe that Israel is committing a genocide, and we can't get our furthest left member of the Senate to say it because of some connection to mystical liberal Zionism that seems kind of deep-seated with him here, that is predicated on separating Netanyahu from the ethno-state project of Israel, which is like fundamentally doing harm to movements for liberation.
And this empowers, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene and the fascist or the anti-Semitic fascists on the right so much, when they're the only ones who are being seen to be able to call it a genocide in any political party at a high enough level to get that kind of coverage from, mainstream legacy media. And I think that a lot of people imagine what that will do is make the position seem crazy. But while that may work for a few people, some people will see it as the only legitimate political, part of the political spectrum, because it's the only one willing to speak truth to a genocide that they're seeing with their own eyes. The Democratic Party, in the center in general, along with the Israeli media and Netanyahu specifically, want you to believe that what they're doing and the veil of silence that they have over it is to protect Jewish people generally around the world. Like, okay, well, maybe you recognize what they're doing is bad, but you have to speak carefully about it, because we know that there's this undercurrent of anti-Semitism that exists in the West that goes undealt with by really any particular political party who happens to be in power in America. But in doing that, and maybe in the short term, it does make it safer. In the long term, it just empowers Nazis to be the only people who are, and that's how Trump got in power in 2016. And it's how, who knows how some far right fascists will get in power in 2032 after, President Milquetoast liberal Democrat fails to address any of this stuff. But I will say, that's why I'm glad that Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana in the UK, Sultana is, is saying it just like it is, that people like Keir Starmer, they're complicit in this. They need to be brought to the Hague too. None of this, maybe we can ask Israel to stop killing people now that we acknowledge that this genocide makes us feel that it's really a genocide, or whatever they want to call it now. They need to be brought in and tried. There needs to be a real accounting for this. Otherwise, it'll happen again. It only took 80 years for this to happen again. How fast will it happen again next time?
And the thing about Bernie is you are a senator. So you should not be allergic to using legal terms. You are a member of the highest lawmaking body in our country. And as far as the taxpayer dollars thing, get that out of here. Our taxpayer dollars should go to stopping Israel. We should be raising hell and earth to make Palestine whole. You mentioned Corbyn here, and that's the thing is, I think Bernie, when he talks about Golda Meir and stuff like that, you get the old type of Zionism, liberal Zionism that it's past. It's 2025. That stuff, people know who Golda Meir was now. But the other problem is the issue with the Dem coalition and what they are complicit in, even to an extent Bernie, when he went on the press to say, I don't know how you can have a ceasefire with Hamas. If you start using the word genocide, you are basically saying, yeah, Joe Biden should go to the Hague. Anthony Blinken should go to the Hague. These people, there should be consequences of a criminal nature to about genocide. And here's this clip with Jeremy Corbyn, just real quick, where Owen Jones asks him about this. And this is what we need from this is actual leadership on this issue right now. And I appreciate Corbyn stating it this way.
Gaza Inquiry and the Foreign Affairs Select Committee Inquiry, and then so what I've done is put a Gaza Inquiry bill to the House.
Is that September?
Yeah, it's blocked by the government, so we did an independent inquiry, 4th and 5th September, Church House, Westminster.
And that's to interrogate what British complicity actually is.
That's right.
But on that, Azal Sultana, who you've launched this party with, she just says very clearly, very plainly, that Keir Starmer and David Lammy belong in the Hague. And the Genocide Convention...
What, wrong in the head?
No, belong in the Hague. Although, I don't want to speculate on that. But the Genocide Convention of 1948 prohibits 5 crimes. One of them is complicity in genocide.
Yes.
And it also imposes legal obligations of governments to prevent...
I have raised a specific point in Parliament with Lammy and others who deny it. I've said to them, look, The ICJ has given its opinion that acts of a genocidal nature taking place in Gaza. I was at the ICJ to listen to it all.
These are a court of justice.
Absolutely fascinating. International Court of Justice. And I've raised this with them, with Haley and with Dami. I said, look, the issue is, if you know genocidal acts are taking place, and you do know, and you are knowingly supplying the wherewithal to Israel to continue further acts, you yourself are complicit and open to prosecution. They deny it. I said, it's not our legal advice. Well, that's an issue we will explore.
It's clear. It's clear. Like, there's like, for all the Democrats talk about, believing in institutions and the legitimacy of it, that's just a mask for like the average NPR addicted liberal to put over themselves at night to cover their eyes to feel better about losing to Trump again. Like, they just care too much about the system. But no, it's clear that this is about trying to block real accounting for complicity in a genocide.
Yeah, and that's part of also what is turning right now. And I hate to be incredibly dark about it, but the famine levels are likely irreversible for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, meaning those that are lucky enough to survive will have been affected at such a cellular level that it's likely that they could pass down that damage via genetics, according to scholars of this kind of thing, onto their offspring. This is the generational trauma that is often talked about with the Holocaust and is real, but in this country is used to justify another Holocaust. But in terms of the chain reaction for the Palestinians that will not survive some of this, you can't just give starving people food and then that's over. The amount of damage that hunger does, where it attacks your organs and basically kind of eats you from the inside and damages your cells, it also makes it so that it's very difficult to absorb nutrients because your body's internal system to absorb those nutrients are damaged. So oftentimes people who have been gone through starvation can't even absorb when they intake food. They'll just have diarrhea because the fluid absorption won't happen, and it'll just leave their body. And that's before that's when you attempt to give them some of those nutrients, even if it's in like this very concentrated way that doctors would recommend. And my suspicion is that hundreds of thousands of bodies. And you have a lot of folks that have access to information that we do not have, that are worried about their historical complicity in this, and they're changing their tune at the 11th hour. I'm just like, I see these headlines too in the Washington Post. The Gaza Health Ministry says 60,000. What are we talking about here? It's just like, what are these numbers even doing except... I mean,
the Lancet has revised it upwards of 400, I believe. So,
but in this country, we're still saying 60,000.
We're in denial about a genocide that our entire political system, across ideologies, is massively complicit in. And this talking point, AOC and Bernie have some fucking work to do, because this talking point about offensive, defensive weapons. Not only like Talib came about it, we had that Refusnik on, went out of his way to mention shame on AOC. And it is shameful, because where that talking point comes from, look at Mehdi Hassan on Pod Save America debating with Jeremy Ben Ali of J Street. It's J Street talking points. We do not support AOC and Bernie Sanders because they have J Street behind them and guiding them on this issue. That is an abdication, and it's genocidal. And it's got to stop.
Yeah, and
you can't say, sorry, one final thing. Okay. You can't say this is a genocide, but I'm going to give them defensive weapons. And that's not just an ultra leftist. That is from an international law, as Jeremy Corbyn has pointed out. You need to stop the genocide.
They could also fund their own Iron Dome if they need to. Do it. This isn't like this isn't just turning off a button and the United States and like all their machinery goes away for their missile defense. Fund it themselves if that's what they're so worried about.
But also the idea is that, like, okay, let's just say you're burning your AOC and you want to make sure that, they have defensive weapons or whatever. That's a fucking leverage point. That's how you force them to stop what they're doing in Gaza. That's how you want these defensive weapons. You must do this, and that. And then only then will we agree to this. It's just ridiculous. It's ludicrous to act like that's not something that you can use as leverage to force them to stop the thing you are acknowledging they are doing, which makes you not want to give them offensive weapons. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
The sort of thing now, Jeremy bin Ali telling Mehdi Hassan, don't use the word genocide because it alienates allies. Who? What allies are alienated by genocide at this point? Because they should be alienated.
We don't
Alienate
have any
the hell
allies.
out of them.
It's the United States and Israel alone at this point, basically.
What he's saying is, I'm not ready because of where I'm at and what my political job is as a lobbyist for Israel to acknowledge that for all the reasons we've said, because international law is fairly clear about obligations when a genocide is being committed. So instead, we're just going to deny it because it would be too inconvenient.
I wish the U.S. government and the UK government and their NATO allies would stop doing a genocide in Israel. I wish they would stop, and I wish they would stop trying to pretend as though that's not what they're doing. I wish that their allies in the political media would stop doing that as well. I wish, some of this energy could be put towards, not this energy here, but this energy that they have for writing letters and, yelling on in the Senate floor about cops getting, I don't know, like increased body cams or whatever.
And dear God, if you want to come at me that way, you're going to have to take it up with me.
I wish it could go towards something that mattered, like getting themselves to stop doing. I wish Cory Booker could go through himself to get himself to stop doing a genocide.
Right. Yeah. Emma, when you were talking about, the medical complications that come from starvation and how it's not just as simple as getting food. One thing I was thinking of, I've been thinking of this for a while now, because I've seen this online, this sentiment of the same sort of hardcore Zionists who share a lot of horrible things when they hear about or see photos of a baby starving in Gaza, and then they start criticizing how much it looks like their parents or family members' way in the photos with them. It's like, do these guys not realize that? And it fits in with like part of what you were talking about earlier with your second guest today. Do they not realize that babies and very small children have specific food requirements? Like, they can't just drop in like flour and like basic bread or whatever, basic like adult foods. These babies need formula, specific things. If there's food there that their parents can't eat, it's not as simple as the parents just giving it to the babies. I have a 1-month-old. If we didn't have formula, if we didn't have things that the baby could eat, it's not as simple as just going in our fridge and giving the baby something my 10-year-old can eat.
Yeah.
But they don't think of these things.
And
they don't, nor do they care. Yeah.
I mean, and also ask the question of why. Look, they need baby formula for a variety of reasons, but breastfeeding. How are mothers able to breastfeed right now?
Right. That's part of it too, right?
As they're being starved, like.
Right.
They don't have the nutrients to pass along to these children via breastfeeding or the capacity to even do it because they're starving themselves.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.